We love this event, Bits and Bytes. It allows us to connect with our clients.
It's a fantastic opportunity for us to advance our mission and spread our message, but also to connect with a wide range of credit union stakeholders and wonderful people.
I'm here tonight at Cuba Libre. BankSocial is a sponsor. Credit unions are in our blood. We build everything for credit unions.
We love credit unions. We support credit unions a bunch of different ways.
The credit union industry is really, I think, the only industry that has such collaboration.
Being present and connecting with stakeholders across the credit union industry is really, really important.
This is one of the best events of the year, the community vibe. I just met some happy new customers and meeting some folks that I hope will be happy new customers.
It's such a great event, a great way to see old friends in the community, make new friends.
These are folks that are working together to do something to make things better for people.
And it's a great location, great vibe, great drinks, and everybody's having a good time.
Welcome back, everyone, to the BankSocial Weekly Sessions. This week, we're going to be recapping one of the largest weeks in the credit union world, GAC. We'll be sharing some of the conversations, insights, and momentum that we saw across the industry. Before we jump into GAC, John, I wanted to turn it over to you for some community updates.
Yeah, some really great stuff. Like you said, the last 2 weeks is, man, the whole beginning of this year has been just off the charts. We've seen so much traction everywhere. Hey, Liz, how's it going? We've seen so much traction everywhere across the board. Really great updates a few weeks back with the Dow approving some of those new capabilities within the Dow. We've got a bunch of updates coming out here in the next few weeks. We've been testing with the delegates the new Dow dashboard, and that looks like it's going to be rolling out early next week. So that's really exciting. Some all new capabilities as far as consolidating all the views from all the different tools. So that's going to be a really exciting update. And then I think as we get here through the next 3 to 4 weeks, there's an opportunity to increase the Dow participation in a lot of the funds flow opportunities that we have. We've increased the opportunity down. I just right before this saw that we got another signed agreement, or to put it more correctly, we re-signed agreement with a South American entity to increase our opportunity with those guys. So that's all part of the Dow and all part of the liquidity protocol and the liquidity mechanism there. So around the board, just really exciting updates for the Dow and the community in general. But we'll get to some more as we go through this, Catherine. So go ahead and take us to the next place.
Awesome. Let's talk about GAC. What were the biggest conversations happening in the hallways?
Well, Liz, I think there's some really cool stuff that's been happening, right, Liz? Where do we start, Liz? Where do you think we start?
It was to bring back my horrible quote that I like to use. You can't swing a cat without hitting somebody talking about AI or crypto. It was everywhere. A lot of it was really positive, and I mean all of it was very positive. Some of it was I think there's some misinformation out there, and so we need to make sure that we continue to create awareness around and education around what's going on, around how credit unions and banks, how financial institutions can go to market with products. And I think it's the time where we're saying let's collaborate as we always do, but nobody really knows where to collaborate just yet because it's so new. And an unfortunate quote that I heard was, "My members aren't asking for stablecoin," and I was like, "Oh man, that's not how we typically would say something, because typically your members or your customers are not going to say, I want an ACH, I want a P2P. They don't have any of that. They don't have any of that, those conversations going on. They just want to move money from A to B. But what is happening is kind of this understanding of payments. So I was talking to a client who said, I need a payment strategy. And they were overwhelmed, like they felt behind. And that's the first credit union that I've heard say, I need a payment strategy, at least to me. We know and we say, hey, all financial institutions need a payment strategy, but I'm not sure if all of them have them. And so that was exciting to talk about on, how they'll start that process and everything. And I also think the mentality around some of our internal processes, not at BankSocial, but at our credit unions, are starting to say, ooh, we need to listen a little bit differently than we have to our customers or our members. And an example of that was when I heard someone say that they pointed out a very specific tool to move money. And we tried to have a conversation around, well, I don't want to offend you, but what if there was a tool that you didn't have a specific name for, like P2P, let's say, but you could move money and you could do it faster and less expensive. And so, they're very stuck on one part of that idea and kind of getting it done for their strategic plan. But as we talked through it, it was kind of like, oh man, we're kind of getting in our own way without having a little bit more, opening our minds up a little bit more on what we actually want to do, which is move money from one place to another safely, quickly, and less expensive than we have it today. I'm sure you guys, John and JT, you have a bunch of these takeaways that I will rattle on. If you please go ahead and share yours, and I'll share more in a little bit.
I was going to say, and maybe it would be a good idea for some of the viewers that don't know the acronyms that we know in our industry. GAC, Governmental Affairs Conference. That's the Super Bowl of credit union events every year, where every single credit union association, the different states or multi-state associations whose job is to advocate for the credit unions in these states, all come to Washington, D.C. And, we really, we hike the hill. We go and we meet with our elected representatives in Congress, in the Senate, to try and advocate for important credit union issues that need to be driven forward. And what a week to go, because we were on the way there. And then, there became some very interesting geopolitical actions being taken around the world. And I remember one of my friends said, oh no, I hope that this doesn't, as terrible as that is, I really hope this also doesn't completely distract away from the important things that we need to drive forward with our senators and our Congress people, number one. Number two, I hope this doesn't turn into a echo chamber battle of everybody's feelings politically that really have nothing to do with this week. And I was really, really proud of the fact that as a group, as a entity of credit unions, of credit union service organizations like BankSocial, I didn't see much of that going on. It really was hyper focused on how can we, as a movement of credit unions, move forward with the big issues. And of course, one of those big issues being the Genius Act. I did join 2 credit union leagues for their breakfast. I was a little bit frustrated because Genius Act did not come up in that conversation as far as things that we want to be prepared to speak to our senators and our Congress folks on. So to your point, Liz, I think that there is some miscommunication out there. I also think that a lot of the folks who are the lobbyists on the Hill just don't know enough about this. And so they're kind of scared to kind of chime in. But I was really proud of the fact that we were there to help support some of those leagues and giving them some talking points and just making sure that we can, and others in the movement, demystify some of the questions and concerns around Genius Act. So it was, I think, the most successful GAC that I've ever been a part of. It was great to see everybody. And this is a huge year for what we do with Genius Act. Hardening, I guess, it could be a word to say, gaining clarity around it, and working together to move this incredible mission forward.
Yeah, so let me color in around the edges there and provide some insights that Liz and JT maybe aren't able to directly share based on their experience at the event. So, we were all in different places the whole time, right? Liz was in the marquee the most of the time, meeting with all of our partners and all of our great, existing partners and new partners. I mean, I think for the first time ever, just looking at it, what I saw all of you doing, it was incredible, Liz. I mean, how many new digital banking partners did we connect with there that we already have signed clients for, that we're starting implementations for? And these are some of the largest digital banking providers in the world. They have the most clients on them in the world. And we talked to 4 of them, 5 of them.
Yeah.
It's like 50% of the banking population is there. And people don't really understand when we throw out numbers like that. So I'd like to maybe take a quick second to quantify that. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about how we were talking to the bankers, banks, and the corporates that support about 55 to 60% of the bankable population of the United States, right? And the way that works is those bankers' banks bank the banks, and those corporate credit unions bank the credit unions, right? They're the banks for the banks and the banks for the credit unions. And so by working, and people don't really understand
this whole Pam thing.
Yeah.
It's like the movie Inception, like the spinning thimbles in the 3rd level, right?
But the digital bankings kind of operates similarly, right? So they've got a cross section of 1,000. Like one of them has over 1,000 financial institutions. One of them has 600 financial institutions. One of them has a few hundred. There are several of them that we talked to have a few hundred financial institutions, right? And so when you bundle that up with who we already have, like Banno, Candescent, we start bringing Q2 into the mix, Alchemy into the mix, all these other digital bankings, you're talking about access and penetration into roughly 50 to 60% of the market in 2 different verticals, right? Going after the bankers, banks, and the corporates, and also going after the digital bankings and the core. And I think at this point, we've got the most penetration. That was probably the most exciting thing to see, is that this year we had so many back-to-back great meetings with existing partners and new partners that there wasn't a minute where we weren't meeting with a really great new partner or a really great existing partner and deepening the relationship.
It wasn't like, oh my gosh, long day. Like someone emailed me, have you recovered? And I was like, recovered? Like I filled my cup. And I don't think I've ever said that leaving a GAC. Like typically I am.
Me neither.
Tired,
You're right. You're tired. And I think the difference is, Liz, if I could give an outside perspective, you've been there how many times? You've been to GAC a bunch of times, right?
Yeah. Years.
Yeah. 8 years, 7 years. JT, I know you've been there a bunch of years. I've only been 3 years. And so my first 2 years were very much chase, right? We were chasing people. We were trying to get meetings with people. We were trying to find people. This year, not that we still weren't hungry and active and out there and trying to make new relationships and new partnerships, but I think we got them all. Yeah. I mean, there definitely, if you're a partner and you're listening out there and we didn't get to connect, we want to connect. We want to be a great partner for you. But to your point, Liz, it was like, man, it was just great conversation after great conversation that wasn't just talking about, ideas. It was talking about like real value next steps that we have already taken with the majority of them, right? I mean, it was really crazy because even before we left, we were already executing on the things we had talked about a day or two before. That's how fast things are moving now. And I think, Liz, you're right. It's that while everybody else, and we were in some back rooms where, some confidential back rooms, Chatham House rules. So I can't say who said what, but, there's pictures out there and you can see where we're sitting next to, the chairman of the NCUA, Commissioner Hester Peirce was there, several senators and their teams were there. And there was tons of representation from, the financial institution space, the investment space, the delivery space, the builder space. And what I will say is that the difference that I think we see in the market is that everybody else is trying to convince people that stable coins, right? That's just like trying to convince people that Fed now, or you should use ACH. Nobody, like to your point, Liz, nobody cares about that. Like I sent a picture to you and Becky today. I was like, I asked this guy today, I was at the register and I said, I asked this guy today if he cares about stable coins. And he just looked at me. He was like, pay me money? Yeah, he's like, no, I don't care. Translation, I don't care about stable coins. What I care about is, do you have a way to pay me and can I get money, right? And that's all I really care about at the end of the day too, right? And sometimes it'll be stable, sometimes it'll be X, sometimes it'll be Y. And I think that's the difference, Liz, is while everybody else is out there convincing people that the hammer and the nail are what they need, we're bringing them fully functional, fully built houses. Do you want a high rise? Do you want do you want something at the beach, right? We're not bringing these institutions hammer and nails and telling them go figure out how to build your own house. And they're like, well, when we think we need a new house, because they all have houses, right? They've all got core systems and digital banking systems. And for us to say, hey, here's a hammer and a nail, go figure out how to build something in your nobody wants that. Like, that's not the way. And so I think that was really the difference maker, Liz, is we weren't out there selling hammers and nails, although our infrastructure does include the picks and shovels, hammers and nails. It's part of our infrastructure. We're selling infrastructure at the end of the day, but we're selling it in a way that they can see, they can deploy, they can feel, they can give to their members, they can give to their consumers. And that makes all the difference, right? Whether it's a private chain or a public chain or a stable coin or a Fed payment or an ACH, people just want to move money. People just want to move value. People want to orchestrate value. And that's the difference in our platform. And I can tell you, JT, to your point about a lot of the senators, don't really know what's going on. That's typically how it works, right? You have specialties in areas where the Senate Banking Committee is the one who sends the proposal out. They go get all the support. They gather all the support, and everybody else is just pushing the button. Like, okay, I trust you, Tim Scott. I'm going to push the button. Yes. Most times they don't even read the bills. It's partisan, bipartisan, depending on the bill. Clarity is one of those ones that interestingly there has been bipartisan support. I think one interesting conversation that I can give a little bit, I can't go too deep into it, is we were able to go to a place called the Army Navy. A Forbes writer who's done an article on us before invited Becky and I out to a place, Army Navy Club. And while we were there, we started talking about the Clarity Act and what's going on in Congress and what some of these other actors are doing. And right then and there, we were able to create a coalition of the interested, which turned into a coalition of the willing. And that's going to be some really cool stuff that Block Advocates and a couple of other big time players are about to drive a wedge into the Clarity Act to bring forth true DeFi legislation, where we're not talking out of both sides of our mouth. We have a very clear road down the middle. We're not trying to compete with banks. We're not trying to call ourselves a crypto company, but really trying to be a bank just by putting the word crypto in front of it. We're really coming through the middle. And I think that's what the cooperative movement is all about at the end of the day. These aren't for-profit institutions. These aren't for-profit entities. They solely exist for community. And so the idea of DeFi resonates with them, right? That doesn't resonate with a Coinbase type of entity. That doesn't resonate with a Chase type of entity. And so it's two sides of the same coin when you look at it like that. We're coming right up the middle. And so that was a really exciting thing that happened there. And we'll be able to share more about that here very soon.
And just to pause for a second, and I know it's a little bit late, but when we have our audiences that come and join our restream, we have two different groups. We have financial institutions that will join to see what's going on, but these were really created for our DAO, the BankSocial DAO. And so we get, shout out to the DAO. We get a ton of conversations coming to our DAO through our DAO, through our different channels. And so if you're watching this and you're like, why are they explaining what GAC is? Why are they explaining? It's because we have two audiences that we're speaking to, but both of them are so aligned and we're trying to pull them together. And
well, I think try is not the word there. I think we're doing it, Liz. I think
Yeah.
we were trying 3 years ago. Now we're doing it.
Yes, certainly. Yes. One of the things that I heard at GAC was, how do I get this crypto to here to then my account? And so it was a super basic question, but very difficult for people to answer. And anybody who's watching, who's from the DAO, you understand how that movement works. Anyone who's watching from credit unions or banks, if you don't have crypto, if you haven't started playing in this space a little bit, I highly encourage you to start doing that. And so to answer that question, John, I'd like you to walk us through how you would have answered that question on how your crypto can get from one spot to another, including into your account at the bank or credit union.
Yeah, well, if we were talking about this 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I would have said something to the effect of, you take your DeFi wallet, you wallet connect it to Pancake Swap, you pour some syrup on it, you extract the money from the smart contract, you take that money, you take the wrapped BNB, you convert it to BNB, you convert that to USDT, you take it to a bridge, you take that bridge to an off ramp, and then after paying hundreds of dollars and waiting many, many hours, and hopefully you know what you were doing along the way, you might get $1 out of it on the other side, right? And then if we were talking about this a year ago, it might be something more like, okay, maybe if you didn't understand, it sounded like you take pancakes and you put syrup on them.
Yeah. Also, we always talk about our acronyms, but like, is that real? Syrup on there?
It's real.
No.
It's real. I swear to God. I swear to God.
Lime and the coconut was already taken, so they had to go with something else.
That's right. And so no, that's real. So the DeFi community will get that, right? Because there's something called Pancake Swap, and it's a decentralized exchange, and it's built on the Binance Smart Chain, but that's literally the nomenclature that's used there. And so how do you explain that to somebody?
Right.
You don't, right? You don't.
Right.
If you don't live it all day, you can't explain that to somebody. And if we were talking a year ago, we would have been saying, all right, well, maybe you take your pancakes with your syrup, and then you spend $10 and you move it from this DEX to this DEX, and then you move it to your Coinbase wallet. You wait 2-3 hours, you panic and sweat because Coinbase uses this 15-year-old omnibus infrastructure where they bring it into a wallet, and then it disappears. You don't know where the hell it went, and then it shows up in an omnibus wallet, and you've lost another $10, and then an hour later they tell you, all right, we finally got your money. And then now you're like, okay, now what do I do? Then you got to figure out how to sell it in the app, and then they lock you down. And now you're like, shit, now I got to go do a facial scan and 10 more steps. And okay, maybe now I talked to customer service and they released it, and now they charge me again to move it to my bank account, right? So like that was phase 2 of the equation, right? Exactly. Wow, right?
It's also because we have BankSocial DAO have been in this for all of that, and holy man, now I understand why there's this real love for crypto from anybody who's been in it for longer than, I guess, the last year.
That's right. And so let's fast forward to now, and we're the only ecosystem where somebody can move $50,000 of XRP from wherever in the ecosystem they want directly into their BankSocial wallet embedded in CUTX or CU1 or Prestige or any of the credit unions that use our technology, and they could just push a button to sell it. It shows up in their bank account, and they didn't have to pour syrup on it. They didn't have to, put butter with a stack of pan. They had to do none of that stuff. And then they can buy and sell. And when they're ready to move it out, they can move it out. When they're ready to stake it, they can stake it. But it all happens seamlessly from within that app. And the other thing that's really interesting is that it's all segregated wallet. It's all individual accounts. It's all self-custody. So we've been able to maintain the full integrity of that existing infrastructure that everybody, that's why they used it, right? Because they wanted that self-custody, they wanted that self-sovereignty over that part of their money,
Right.
but they also want it to be interoperable with their lives,
Right.
you know?
That would be easy.
And that's right. They want it easy. And this is where, when you start talking about payment infrastructure, it's not stablecoin infrastructure, it's payment infrastructure, right? If somebody wants to be able to pay with their Bitcoin, but pay their car loan or pay a credit card off or pay at the point of sale, you don't want 15 apps. You don't want to wait I mean, think about how you could do that in the Coinbase world. You can't. Their infrastructure doesn't facilitate that type of stuff, right? It's all in big omnibus wallets, and it takes forever to get it out of there. It's just not meant for that. It was meant for people. It was meant for the early days of crypto, where you bought and sold and held it, and then that's all you did, right? It was more like an investment only tool. But now that it's become part of mainstream, now that it's part of Main Street America, that needs to be an interoperable, a safe and secure, self-sovereign, interoperable value chain with every other monetary system that you use, with every other financial instrument you have in your life. And that's what we've been able to do. And that's why I think we're getting all the traction we are, Liz. I think the other day I was talking with one of the digital banking providers with Q2. And, the first question he asked me, he was like, okay, so he kind of sighed. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said the digital banking, but whatever. He kind of sighed and he was like, so tell me how many contracts do you have to sign to get this thing off the ground? And I was like, what? I was like lost. I didn't know what he meant. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, how many contracts do they sign a contract with you? And then you have crypto, you've got stocks, you got payment rails, you've got all these things. How many contracts do they have to sign to turn all this on? And I was like, one. What do you mean? Why would they have to sign 20? And then it occurred to me that, oh man, it's because the majority of the other providers out there are just wrappers around other infrastructure. They're not infrastructure, they're wrappers around infrastructure. And so that means that when you deploy that solution, not only is it coming with the increased cost, but it's coming with the it's continuing the increased complexity of the vendor management. And I think that's the other thing, Liz, that we've seen is the consolidation that we bring in the form of vendor management.
Right.
It's something that not a lot of even digital bankings have seen to this point, especially not from third-party vendors who are typically point solutions as opposed to more fully integrated infrastructure plays like we are. And I think that's why we see a lot of these digital banking providers really excited about partnering with us and bringing us to, and why we see our credit unions that are signing up with us in droves being excited about this type of opportunity to not only get that great experience. I know people love pancakes and syrup, but being able to leave all that behind and still get this really great upgraded experience that brings all these novel new ways that people want into the digital banking, but that does it with a single contract.
Right.
Well, the timing on the syrup's perfect because it is maple syrup time harvest, John, at least up here in Maine. It's coming. So good timing.
Quite apropos. Yeah. I knew it.
Shout out to my maple syrup brothers and sisters, which they have a cooperative as well, by the way. But Liz, one of the things that you had said early on that I think is really important, we double click on, is that there was that comment from one CEO that said, well, our members aren't asking for this. Well, of course they're not. They're asking for faster payments. They're asking for, the experience that they're enjoying from a Venmo or a Cash App or a Zelle or something else that the credit union isn't doing right now, and they need to get into that space. Number one. Number two, so many of those credit unions aren't looking. I think a big part of the story with why Becky Reed got into this space is because she looked, right? She looked at her data and she realized that her members were using this. She wasn't sure, she was curious, and she looked. And then that's what told the story. So many of those credit unions that are saying that, they haven't looked yet. And that's part of our journey, right? Catherine, we were just talking about this before with another credit we just met with today. They've just got to look. And once they look and see, they're going to see the truth. So that, I think, is another important point. But it was funny. One of my data guru friends that, we met at the coffee area down in the thing, she said, boy, you guys must be the talk of the town. town this year because everybody's talking about Genius Act and, how's it all going? And I said, well, a lot of these roundtables that we're listening to folks talk about Genius Act, talk about stable coins and crypto and all this stuff. I said, you know what? It reminds me of that time in the credit union space in which everybody was at GAC listening to roundtable discussions, debating whether or not to connect the credit unions to the internet. That's literally what it feels like, because you think back to that time and you go, well, what were the concerns? Well, number one, I don't think our members are really on the internet. I don't think our members are doing that. They're never going to go there to bank, number one. Number two, the security risks and the compliance. And my God, I mean, if we were connected to the internet, think of how scary and challenging that would be. And, it's like the more I thought about it, the more that metaphor really like fit perfectly into the conversations that I was hearing as to folks going, should we do this? Well, if we do this, what are the concerns?
Well, JT, that's perfect. That's a perfect analogy for it, because we use the terms Web 1, Web 2, Web 3.
Right.
And if you look at the web's evolution, you've really had this come around, not just in the late 80s, early 90s when the internet was first launched with Web 1, right? That was the first wave where people were like, what do we do with the internet and how we do it? But it also happened with Wave 2, right? With digital banking, when Web 2 came along, and now it was read-write economy, where you could do a lot more on the internet, like the early 2000s, late 90s. And that's when digital banking came along, and we saw it again, right? It's like, wait, digital banking? Forget the first wave of the internet, Web 1. They said that's not going to happen. Then Web 2 came along, and they were like, wait, digital banking? Pushing buttons on a phone, nobody's going to do that, right? And then it's like, if you don't have that, you're dead now, right? That's why I think it's important. That's a great point, JT, because Web 1, they said no, and it came and it washed away the naysayers. Web 2 came through, those who said no got washed away. Web 3 is here. It's established now. It's not going away. Laws are in place that ensure that it will not go away. And so those who are still saying like, yeah, my members don't want ACH transactions. They don't want digital footprint. You're done, right? And you have 3 to 5 years to modernize. But again, those that are looking at it through the coin of, oh, it's got to be a stable coin. If I don't go find a point solution for stable coins, I'm dead. That's not the new world. With agentic AI and Web 3, that's not the new world. The new world is value orchestration, right? So, yeah, that's a great point, JT.
Yeah, well, in the other metaphor that worked really well is you think about digital banking and people were like, wait a minute. So there's a dollar that says on this screen that I have a dollar at my credit union right now. I don't understand that. Can I trust that? Does this digital dollar on my phone right now or on my website, is that real? Yeah, and that's akin to, I think the metaphor for what stable coins really are. You know what I mean? So anyways, I thought about that metaphor, and then I finished it up with, now imagine you could go back in time and try to talk to those folks at that GAC about what's going to happen. I said, that's how we feel explaining what's going on around the Genius Act, because we know what's coming and we know that it's going to be okay. There's going to be a transition. But this is something that's happening right now, and the ones that start now are going to be so much farther along than the ones that wait to see what happens.
There are. I was also very inspired. Well, okay. Also, I do have to say, I'm constantly telling you guys, I am on Mount Stupid, and then I tumble into the Valley of Despair. And if you know the Dunn-Kruger analogy, then that makes sense to you. And then I think I'm climbing up and understanding things, and I'm sliding back down. And last week for me was a lot of that. I think the team here, we get to meet with John, and we just pepper him with questions. And for some people, you'd be like, that's the stupidest question ever. For others, you'd be like, I didn't even realize. I always say, Catherine, I didn't even realize that was a question that I had that she often asks. And that was a lot of last week, is also when you start to, we started seeing organizations articulate what they think the strategy is and what's going on, and then also be so open to understanding, like, I got to ask the stupid questions. that I think might be stupid, but really they're not. Like
Right.
a lot of us are learning. And so it was really refreshing. We met with a credit union, and they waxed poetic very well, I thought, when it came to speaking about stable coins and crypto in general. And then they just did what I just did, which was like, hey, but I don't know anything when it comes to this world. So there was a lot of that as well, which is wonderful.
Yeah, so much of it's about definitions. I even had somebody say, "What? I'm sorry, I don't know what a rail is." I'm sorry, I don't know what pig butchering is. I don't know, I don't know what some of these phrases are. And so I think part of our job, and I don't think anybody's better at this than Becky Reed, is just the translation, right? Just the translation into things that they understand in their world. The wallet is like a core, and it's just breaking that down into a language that the credit unions can understand is really helping move folks along much, much faster in understanding the why behind, the importance of all of this stuff. Unlike you, Liz, although it did fill my cup, I was exhausted. I was so tired coming home because it was bell to bell.
Well, we did go to different parties at times. I was a PJ party.
That's true. You and Becky were very good. You guys were like, done at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm getting texts to go to another karaoke thing, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going back out. So,
yeah.
But it was a wonderful time to be in DC, and really, I personally, I was just really, really proud about the fact that we are at the leading edge of such an important moment in the credit union movement that I think is akin to the internet. I mean, truly, I think we're going to look back 5 years from now and we're going to go, that was such a crucial swing point, and credit unions surviving. So this is a great place to be right now.
I love that.
All right. So I'm going to move to, go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to say, I love that comparison. It's also like the EMV chip cards, right? That was a 5-year process as well. And people didn't believe in it initially in the beginning. So you want to move on to questions from the community, John?
Yeah. So let's, we've got a lot of questions here. So I'm going to kind of take them in rapid succession. So what is the BankSocial team working on right now? Oh my God. We're hyper focused on modernization for financial institutions across the entire stack, from the Fed connectivity layer to the bankers, banks, and corporate layer, to the individual credit unions and banks layers, to the member and consumer layer. So that generally, and there's a lot of things in between, but it's modernization for consumer experience, business to business, business to consumer, all that. What role does BankSocial have in X402? So, X402 has been a foundational component of how we think about the future of money movement. And so we've been involved in several pilots, mostly merchant service, point of sale type pilots. Those are really, though, centered around wallet infrastructure embedded within the digital banking, so that you no longer have to have 5 to 6 different apps to complete those same payments that you would otherwise need those 5 or 6 different apps for. But then that's going to extend out to many different asset types and many different classes of assets. So founders NFTs, we've been working on some retooling of the way our secure direct nodes work with Dr. Baird and the team over at Hashgraph. We're probably about 3 weeks out from rolling out the updated infrastructure for direct nodes, founders direct nodes. And the way that'll work is, in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we'll have a mechanism for being able to stake your founders NFTs in your BankSocial app, and then being a direct node supporter that has those benefits that we talked about originally. So if you have a direct founders node, if you're not in the verified chat, get in the verified chat. We will have several notices go out here over the next few weeks so that you can start to stake your founders NFTs and start to participate in the direct distribution helper node structure. So that's going to come. That looks like the rural direct founders notes. So that covers all those questions. 50 states. I think we are just a few days away, or maybe a week or so away from 50 states, maybe minus a state or two. So be rolling on that. Liz, the card partnership. We just got confirmation that we're moving into final rollout and final components of that and rollout with that just the other day, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I was just emailing on it. I mean, I was totally paying attention to everything that you were just saying.
No, all good, all good. So there is there's a question here about the community and Filipino bank. That this is still in play. The Coconut Farmers Consortium, ConFed, and I'm not sure it's called the Coconut. I think it's called Coconut Federation. The coconut farmers of the Philippines. We signed an agreement at Davos and have been working towards the DAO having an opportunity to participate in potentially helping to seed ownership into that bank. There's a bank right now that we're talking to seed ownership in that bank and become partial owners in that bank, with the intention of eventually turning that bank into something that's owned by all the farmers, and that can turn into a regulated DeFi play. Right now we're it's looking like we're going to be on Hedera with this. It'll be cross chain, it'll be cross platform, it'll likely connect into Ripple and every other chain as well. But the base components of this will certainly live on top of Hedera. We've been talking with a couple other projects in the Hedera ecosystem, a couple other companies in the Hedera ecosystem on being additional support structures for that. So that's progressing extremely well. But again, you guys know that DeFi and TradFi move at different paces. I was just talking with the team from Blockstream this morning, Dr. Adam Back's team. DeFi wants it all done yesterday. Banks feel like they want it done when it's ready to go and safe and sound and secure. And so while we do have the infrastructure to deploy, they're all at different states of understanding what safe, secure, and sound means. So it's been progressing extremely well. I think we're progressing faster than we have with banks here in the United States. So very, very enthusiastic about the progress being made. To temper that, it is a bank. It does not move at the speed of DeFi. And so it will continue to progress as it can. Regulators are involved. It is not going to be an overnight process. And we will just continue to chop away and make consistent progress towards it. The overall picture, though, is that the DAO is looking at seeding the ownership opportunity in the bank as the farmers start to own parts of the bank over about a 2-year period. I would anticipate that by mid-April, we'll have a lot more to share on that. We're still in a confidentiality period with the bank and the regulators, going through just next steps on what exactly needs to happen. There's a grandfather period, which the bank that we're working with essentially has about 2 years of a grandfather period that allows them to transition from a community bank to a digital community bank. There's a special charter in the Philippines for converting to digital only, and that's what this is going to be. That's the conversion that's happening. So we'll continue getting everybody pushed that way and doing that. So that's pretty much it. There's another question here about lending and borrowing be handled within. So, everybody's kind of looking at things one of two ways. People are looking at the question here is, how will lending and borrowing be handled within the BankSocial app, traditionally with forms and credit checks, or more decentralized? It's not an or, it's an and. Some lending and some opportunities require different mechanisms, right? Require different underwritings, different liquidity mechanisms. Others require other liquidity mechanisms and other underwriting capabilities. Some of them are pure DeFi. Some of them are pure TradFi. Some of them are combinations of both. And so to say that it has to be one or the other doesn't put us in the position to go deploy this into financial institutions, hundreds of them, thousands of them that support millions and millions and millions of people around the globe. What does give us the capability to do that is saying it's and. So where it makes sense, it's this type of lending. And where it makes sense, it's this type of lending. And where it makes sense, it's the combination of the two. And so, that's kind of how you should look at it. Is we believe there's a space for both to exist. And we believe that as things become more decentralized, those existing regulations obviously don't go away. Through Clarity, there will be additional opportunities for DeFi to flourish, but we always see there being a bridge between TradFi and DeFi, and we feel like community banks and credit unions are the optimal place for that to live. So we're pretty much over time. Anything else everybody wants to say?
I just want to thank you, John, for spending time at that hackathon at Duke University, getting us another very talented young team that we're going to be highlighting down at Disney World at the NACUSO conference at the end of April. Really
well,
excited.
We've got another hackathon at the end of this month too, and here in Dallas, and I've already gotten confirmation that UT Dallas will be participating, SMU will be participating, potentially TCU and potentially UNT. So we've already got 2 colleges participating. We'll see about a couple more.
Awesome.
That's so exciting.
It is indeed.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And if you missed any part of the conversation, please just listen in on replay, and we will see you all next week at 3 p.m. Central.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.